Good afternoon, students. So today we'll see the second video of the fifth module, that is attribution, acknowledgement and dispatch of electronic records. So in this we are going to see attribution of electronic records, acknowledgement of receipt, and time and place of dispatch and receipt of electronic record. So first one we'll see attribution of electronic records. An electronic record shall be attributed to the originator if it was sent by the originator himself or by a person who had the authority to act on behalf of the originator in respect of that electronic record, or by an information system programmed by or on behalf of the originator to operate automatically. So when this electronic documents we are going to prepare, then there has to be somebody who can attribute to the originator of the electronic record. It may be by the originator himself, or it may be by a person who had the authority to act on the behalf of the originator, or it can be an information system programmed on behalf of the originator to operate automatically. So next one is acknowledgement of receipt. Where the originator has not agreed with the addressee that the acknowledgement of receipt of electronic record be given in a particular form or by a particular method, an acknowledgement may be given by. It may be given by any communication by the addressee, automated or otherwise, or any conduct of the addressee sufficient to indicate to the originator that the electronic record has been received. So once an electronic record which has been attributed by the originator will be sent, then it has to be acknowledged so that it has received or not, will get the information about that. Where the originator has stipulated that the electronic record shall be binding only on the receipt of an acknowledgement of such electronic record by him, then unless acknowledgement has been so received, the electronic record shall be deemed to have been never sent by the originator. Or else, where the originator has not stipulated that the electronic record shall be binding only on the receipt of such acknowledgement, and the acknowledgement has not been received by the originator within the time specified or agreed, or if no time has been specified or agreed to within a reasonable time, then the originator may give notice to the addressee stating that no acknowledgement has been received by him and specifying a reasonable time by which the acknowledgement must be received by him, and if no acknowledgement is received within the aforesaid time limit, he may, after giving notice to the addressee, treat the electronic record as though it has never been sent. So here, once an originator sends an electronic record, he has to receive the receipt from the receiver, and that receipt has to be received in form of acknowledgement within a specified time, and if it has not been received within a specified time, then treat the electronic record has never been sent. Next one is the time and place of dispatch and receipt of electronic record. Unless as otherwise agreed to between the originator and the addressee, the dispatch of an electronic record occurs when it enters a computer resource outside the control of the originator. Unless as otherwise agreed between the originator and the addressee, the time of receipt of an electronic record shall be determined as follows. Namely, if the addressee has designated a computer resource for the purpose of receiving electronic records, the receipt occurs at the time when the electronic record enters the designated computer resource. If the electronic record is sent to the computer resource of the addressee that is not the designated computer resource, a receipt occurs at the time when the electronic record is retrieved by the addressee. Unless as otherwise agreed to between the originator and the addressee, an electronic record is deemed to dispatch at the place where the originator has his place of business and is deemed to be received at the place where the addressee has his place of business. If the originator or the addressee has more than one place of business, the principal place of business shall be the place of business. If the originator or the addressee does not have a place of business, his usual place of residence shall be deemed to the place of business. Usual place of residence in relation to a body corporate means the place where it is registered. So next we'll see secure electronic records and secure digital signatures. So first we'll see secure electronic record, then we'll see secure digital signature. Secure digital signature. So first we'll see secure electronic record. Where any security procedure has been applied to an electronic record at a specific point of time, then such record shall be deemed to be a secure electronic record from such point of time to the point of verification. So here what exactly we have to do is that we have to apply any security procedure or algorithm or a method to the electronic record at some point of a time. And after applying the algorithm or a procedure, whatever the resultant electronic record we get it, that we say it's a secure electronic record until the time of verification. So next one is a secure digital signature. If by application of a security procedure agreed to by the parties concerned, it can be verified that a digital signature at the time it was affixed was unique to the subscriber affixing it, capable of identifying such subscribers, created in a manner or using a means under the exclusive control of the subscriber, and is linked to the electronic record to which it relates in such a manner that if the electronic record was altered, the digital signature would be invalidated, then such digital signature shall be deemed to be a secure digital signature. So here again, in a secure digital signature, first you need to apply, first the two communicating parties, they need to agree on the procedure, security procedure which they want to apply for digital signature. Once that procedure will be applied, then that digital signature will be verified by applying that signature. And once it is applied and both are going to get the same value, then we say it's a secure digital signature. Next one is what exactly that security procedure is. The central government, for the purposes of this act, prescribed the security procedure having regard to commercial circumstances prevailing at the time when the procedure was used, including the nature of the transaction, the level of sophistication of the parties with reference to their technological capacity, the volume of similar transaction engaged in by other parties, the availability of the alternatives offered to but rejected by any party, the cost of alternative procedures, and the procedure in general used for similar types of transaction or communications. So these all points we are taking into consideration when the procedure was used for securing the electronic record and digital signature. So next one is regulation of certifying authorities. Regulation of certifying authorities. In that first one, we are going to see appointment of controller and other officers. The central government may, by notification in the official gazette, appoint a controller of certifying authorities for the purpose of this act, and may also by the same or subsequent notification appoint such number of deputy controllers and assistant controllers as it deems fit. The controller shall discharge his functions under this act subject to the general control and directions of the central government. The deputy controllers and assistant controllers shall perform the functions assigned to them by the controller under the general superintendence and control of the controller. So here the central government is going to appoint a controller of certifying authorities for purpose of this act, and under these controller they may go for appointing the deputy controller and the assistant controllers. So the job of the deputy controllers and the assistant controllers are assigned by the controller, and when the controller want to discharge his functions, then as per the direction of the central government, he need to do that task. The qualification, experience and terms and conditions of service of controller, deputy controller and assistant controllers shall be such as may be prescribed by the central government. The head office and the branch office of the controller shall be at such places as the central government may specify, and these may be established at such places as the central government may think fit. There shall be a seal of the office of the controller. So here that is regarding qualification, experience and terms and conditions of the service of a controller may be as per the government rules. Where exactly the head office and the branch office of the controller may be situated, it is again going to be specified by the central government, and there has to be a seal of the office for the controller. Then what exactly the functions of these controller? The controller may perform all or any other following functions: exercising supervision over the activities of the certifying authorities, certifying public keys of the certifying authorities, laying down the standards to be maintained by the certifying authorities, specifying the qualifications and experience which employees of certifying authorities should possess, specifying the conditions subject to which the certifying authority shall conduct their business, specifying the contents of written, printed or visual materials and advertisements that may be distributed or used in respect of the digital signature certificate and the public key, specifying the form and the content of a digital signature certificate and the key. Then specifying the form and the manner in which accounts shall be maintained by the certifying authorities, specifying the terms and conditions subject to which auditors may be appointed and the remuneration to be paid to them, facilitating the establishment of any electronic system by a certifying authority either solely or jointly with other certifying authorities and regulations of such systems, specifying the manner in which the certifying authority shall conduct their dealings with the subscribers, resolving any conflict of interest between the certifying authorities and the subscribers, laying down the duties of the certifying authorities, maintaining a database, controlling the disclosure record of every certifying authority containing such particulars as may be specified by regulations which shall be accessible to the public. So these 14 are the main functions of the controller. So next one is a recognition of foreign certifying authorities. The controller may be with the previous approval of central government and by notification in the official gazette recognize any foreign certifying authority as a certifying authority for the purpose of this act. Where any certifying authority is recognized under the subsection 1, the digital signature certificate issued by such certifying authority shall be valid for the purpose of this act. So when the controller is going to recognize the foreign certifying authorities, that foreign certifying authority has to produce its digital signature certificate which should be valid within the specified period. The controller may, if he is satisfied, then any certifying authority has contravened any of the conditions and the restrictions subject to which it was granted recognition under subsection 1, he may, for reasons to be recorded in writing by notification in the official gazette, and revoke such recognition. Then controller to act as a repository. The controller shall be the repository of all digital certificates issued under this act. The controller shall make use of hardware, software and procedures that are secure intrusion and misuse. Observe such other standards as may be prescribed by the central government to ensure that the secrecy and security of the digital signatures are assured. The controller shall maintain a computerized database of all public keys in such a manner that such database and public keys are available to any member of the public. So here, as the controller is acting as a repository of the digital signatures or digital signature certificates, that controller has to make use of a hardware, software, and a procedures which are secured from intrusion and a misuse. Then it should ensure the secrecy and security of the digital signatures, and it should maintain a computerized database of all the public keys in such a manner that it should be available to any member of the public. Then license to issue digital signature certificates. Any person may make an application to the controller for a license to issue digital signature certificate. No license shall be issued under subsection 1 unless the applicant fulfills such requirements with respect to the qualification, expertise, manpower, financial resources, and other infrastructure facilities which are necessary to issue digital signature certificates as may be prescribed by the central government. A license granted under this section shall be valid for such period as may be prescribed by the central government, not be transferable or heritable, be subject to such terms and conditions as may be specified by the regulations. Then the application for the license. Every application for issue of a license shall be in such a form as may be prescribed by the central government. Every application for issue of a license shall be accompanied by a certification practice statement, a statement including the procedures with respect to identification of the applicant, payment of such fees not exceeding 25,000 rupees as may be prescribed by the central government, such other documents as may be prescribed by the central government. So these are what some of the issues of a license which will be accompanied by every application. They need to accompanied by a certifications practice statement, a statement including the procedures with respect to identification of the applicant, payment of such fees not exceeding 25,000 rupees, and such other documents which are prescribed by the central government. So next one is a renewal of a license. An application for renewal of a license shall be in the required form, accompanied by such fees not exceeding 5,000 rupees as may be prescribed by the central government, and shall be made not less than 45 days before the date of expiry of the period of validity of the license. So when applicant want to renew his license, then that renewal form he need to submit it, and the fee is not more than 5,000 rupees, and it has to be made not less than 45 days before the date of expiry of the license. So further part of this we'll see in the next video.